Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, your Christmas episode. Now, you might be having a Christmas dinner, you might be having a Christmas lunch. If, like me, you have a Greek mother-in-law, you'll be having about 6 meals on Christmas Day. My dear mother-in-law Eleni is the only person in the world who thinks I'm undernourished and in need of a good meal. She'll be providing plenty of those, as I'm sure will all of you. So what do you drink over the course of Christmas? Well, if you're having a big Christmas lunch, quite often turkey is your center point. Turkey can be a little bit dry. If you're looking to make one, go and Google Gordon Ramsay's recipe with plenty of butter for a nice moist turkey. Whatever you do end up having, this first wine I think would be a fairly solid companion. It comes from Haute Cabriere out in France. They've got a beautiful cellar, a lovely dining room, and they're also one of the few places you can go and practice sauvage, the art of removing the top of a champagne or MCC bottle with a sabre. This is something that's caught on over the last few years. It's become almost a cult wine in South Africa, the Chardonnay Pinot Noir. It's got that hint of blush. It's somewhere between a white wine and a rosé, and it's a wine that, although white, still has quite a bit of substance, and that's great for a big Christmas meal, especially if you have a turkey that's a little on the dry side. It adds the moistness you need, and a big mouthful of this will help you get through your Christmas lunch. Now, I've got a very distant and very, very old link to this particular estate. My mother, when she was extremely young, used to go out with Achim van Arnhem, the patriarch of Haute Cabriere. So if things had worked out differently, I might now be the winemaker at Haute Cabriere. Instead, I'm just somebody who loves to drink the wine. They make some superb Pierre Jourdain, which I'm sure you've had plenty of, and then they make this. So they've been making this now for 20 odd years, so they really are the pioneers in combining Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Now, completely correctly, you might think, well, if it's a Chardonnay mixed with a Pinot Noir, it should effectively be a rosé, and there are elements to that, particularly on the nose and on the palate, but colour-wise, it very much does look more Chardonnay than Pinot Noir or anything in between, and it's a wine that's got lovely substance but isn't too overwhelming, and it's made for the South African summer. So what you've got there is you've got the Chardonnay, but it's just offset, smoothed down, rounded off, however you'd prefer to put it, by that Pinot Noir. And the composition is really elegant. It's not a terribly expensive wine. It's not a wine that shouts out and screams aristocratic product, but it is a wine that's got a nice, full, rounded feel to it. And it's a wine you can start, have a nice big glass with, and then move effortlessly into your turkey and stuffing and potatoes and crackers and really bad hats and be quite comfortable with. So this can take you through the day. But if you want to go for something that's really high end and still on that white wine space, then the next wine is going to be hard to beat. Lists of wine are massively subjective. You can find them all over the world, and the wine that one person says amazing, the next person will say is best used to clean your car tires. This wine, though, is one that's got pretty much universal appeal, and the recent accolade it's received is number 11 in Wine Spectator's Top 100 Wines for 2016. It is the Hamilton Russell Chardonnay. Only one South African wine in that top 100, which suggests the people making up the list don't have a clue what they're talking about, with one exception, and that being this. We've seen the Hamilton Russell Pinot Noir a little earlier on in Dan Really Likes Wine, but it's their Chardonnay that is getting so many admirers at the moment. And if you want something that's big and bold and classy and creamy and perfect for a Christmas lunch under a hot African sun, this could be your best bet. So I've already had one Christmas dinner at home this year, and I served this, and I served it to universal acclaim. They only make 2 wines at Hamilton Russell, their Pinot Noir, which is sensational, and then their Chardonnay. So they're very, very focused on the 2 varietals that they work with. And what they've come up with their Chardonnay is a wonderful example of why we are so good at making it here in South Africa. Our Don't Hate Chardonnay episode earlier on in Dan Really Likes Wine got a lot of feedback, a lot of people who were acknowledging that actually Chardonnay is something worth giving some time to. If you didn't think so before, you certainly will here. There's just so much to this wine that's going to take on whatever you serve, whether it's a gammon, the regular turkey, a goose, anything you throw out for that Christmas lunch or Christmas dinner. This has just got so much to it as a wine. It's going to take on all of your food, not overpower it, but just make the whole experience that much more complete. That's absolutely lovely. It is rich, it's decadent, it's exquisite. It's only a 2014, so as I've said many times before with white wine, it's got a lot of time that it can sit in the cellar. But even now, 2014, it's got 2 coming on for 3 years in it, and it's drinking superbly. You serve this at your Christmas dinner or your Christmas lunch, and you're going to have a very, very long queue of guests looking to come back in a year's time. So white wine does work particularly well for a part of the world where we don't have white Christmases. A lot of you, though, would prefer some red. I'll definitely be having some red over Christmas, but if you're having a Christmas lunch, as so many of us do, a big heavy red, maybe not the best thing to go with the sheer amount of food you're likely to indulge in, particularly as it's the kind of day, once you've got through stockings and desserts and starters, makes for a rather overindulgent occasion. So a Pinot Noir, I think, is a pretty good way to go. We've had some terrific Pinot Noir already on Dan Really Likes Wine. This is another one from Elgin and from an estate that I've got to know particularly well. Anthony Robon-Villion is the man behind it. They make some terrific wine out at Oak Valley. And this Pinot Noir is a great example of both the estate and the terroir in Elgin that just speaks light and fruity and excellent for a long day of Christmas celebration. So I first got to meet the wines of Oak Valley through a winemaker who's sadly no longer with us. Peter Visser is, I'm sure, looking down with a large glass in hand fondly at the legacy he's left behind at Oak Valley. They do make some exceptional wine. I think their red blend is one of the better value wines you can find in the Elgin area, but their Pinot Noir speaks to the terroir and style of Pinot Noir that is made in that Elgin area, and they're famous for it. It is a wine that shouts out lightness and fun and fruit, and for a long, dragged out Christmas day, I think this is a perfect wine. For me, the delight of Pinot Noir is that subtlety, the fact that it's such an understated wine, and yet at the same time isn't going to get blown away by anything else. So it's a wine you can have with a big turkey or a big duck or a big goose. It's got enough in it to go pound for pound with whatever you're eating for your Christmas lunch, but it's not going to make you feel bloated and drained. It's not that big, heavy type of wine. So for a long Christmas lunch, I think this is ideal. Take a degree or 2 off it, pop it in the fridge for 20 minutes before you open it up, and I think you'll be absolutely perfect. It's a lovely colour, it's a lovely wine, and it's a splendid Christmas companion. So 3 relatively light wines, a white blend, and a Pinot Noir. But this is South Africa, and there will be a number of you for whom a turkey or a goose or a duck or a gammon is not really Christmas. Christmas is a large amount of red meat. A Christmas braai is a tradition for many people in South Africa, and so the nod to that, a wine that can take on that sort of tradition. I discovered this, as one so often does with great wine, completely by accident. I was doing a tasting at Doolhof down in Wellington, and the lady behind the counter asked if I'd like to try some of this. Now, I'm not one to say no when offered a tasting, but I wasn't terribly excited until I'd actually tried it. And then I realized this was something rather special. It is the Jacques Poitier Tricentennial. It celebrates 300 years of the estate, 2012, when they marked up a remarkable amount of time making wine. And it's a really fantastic blend. It's a Merlot-led Bordeaux blend, and it's just got a huge amount of depth to it. It's a big rounded wine, and if you're going to have one of those Christmases that's got a big prime rib on the brie or a huge amount of red meat, then I think this will take you through lunch and probably into a pretty solid afternoon nap. So Jacques Poitier's fame is not, as far as I know, being related to Sydney, but it is being one of the early wine pioneers of the Cape. He got down to the Doolhof area in the early 1700s, and in 1712 he was granted the license to take some land and make some wine, and was the very first winemaker as a result at the Doolhof estate. So this Tricentennial celebrates both him and the heritage of the estate. It's a big, rich, red blend, and this could add a definite sparkle to your Christmas. So there's a smokiness to it, that sort of slightly leathery finish on the back of plenty of big, bold berries. The Merlot giving it that smooth feed, and then just a really nice strong blend. So as you're pulling your crackers and you're having a look at your Christmas gifts and you're leading yourself into a very lazy afternoon, I think this will go very, very nicely indeed. As it would if you are of a persuasion where you have a Christmas dinner the night before on Christmas Eve. I think this will go very nicely then as well. But really, all of these wines will be a terrific celebration of your Christmas season. So whatever you take, be it the blend, be it the Chardonnay, be it the Pinot Noir, or be it the big red blend, I hope they work really, really nicely with your Christmas lunch. If you've got any suggestions, send them along to us. We're always happy to take feedback at danreallylikeswine.com, and all of the wine is available at the very same website. So have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas day, and we look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll give you some suggestions on some bubbles to help see in 2017. Cheers.